Okay. Before I start this boiler mechanic tropical update, let me just give credit where credit is due. Let me just first of all put out a disclaimer. I am a boiler mechanic. I've seen lots of hurricanes here in South Florida, probably about 6 of them. I've been through 3 direct hits, including the unprecedented double whammy that we got here in the Palm Beach area in 2004. And then Wilma came in 2005. It was pretty crazy. So I'm no stranger to hurricanes. I've also been sent into devastated areas because that's what boiler mechanics tend to do is go to devastated areas and get boilers running because, boilers are important, believe it or not. But I wanted to give credit where credit is due. Understand that I'm not a professional, okay? I want to go and show you a professional. There's this one I haven't given credit to for yet. So Tropical Tidbits is like the best site for tropical cyclone and weather nerds. It's really fantastic. It's probably got the best interface out of. I mean, Weather Underground really hasn't changed in like 20 years. But Tropical Tidbits really takes the interface and the information that you can have access to the next level. And let's all give a thanks out to I guess it's Dr. Levy Cohen. Maybe Levy Cohen. I thought it was Dr. Levy Cohen. Uh, Whoever this guy is, I thought he said he was a doctor somewhere. Where did I see that? Somewhere I saw that guy is a doctor. And so I don't know if what he's a doctor of. So I'm assuming he's a doctor of climatology, meteorology, physics, something, atmospheric physics, something. I'm going to assume he's a professional. Give him a shout out. Listen to this guy before you listen to me. Go to his channel. At least take his information and just take his information with less of a grain of salt than mine. I want to focus on Southeast Florida and just give my 2 cents on what I think is going to happen. I've been able to, guess the paths of storms before pretty well. So I just hope maybe I have something to add. But always understand that I'm not a professional. This is a professional right here. And his little videos are fantastic. And he's very professional. He seems to know what he's talking about. Now, this guy here actually was on top of. Let's go back here and look at the Atlantic wide. So let's start with this. So we have this disturbance right here. Now Jeff Masters was talking about it last night, and this guy actually was on top of it for over a week. So basically, what happened is there was a broad area of low pressure. Let's go back to Atlantic wide here. I still haven't really gotten a handle on this. I thought this would pause. So basically, we had a broad area of low pressure all through last week as Franklin was kind of tracking this way and eventually doing its expected turn north. Now, by the way, last week, I didn't really phrase or word this correctly. I said the best case scenario for Franklin would be to go this way, right? But all of the models, and I forgot to mention it at the time, all of the forecasts were having it basically get pulled north because a trough of low pressure was kind of sitting over here. I don't remember if it was upper level trough, and then there's this high pressure system building basically to the east of that, and that was all going to tend to push it to the north. I think actually the high pressure system wasn't a factor so much back last week, but there was this trough here that was kind of pulling stuff to the north. So there's that. I forgot to mention, I was saying, well, the best case scenario would it be for it to do this kind of thing here. So that's besides the point. I'm just a boiler mechanic. But here we have this storm, and this guy, Nicky Travati, was on it last week. There was this really broad area of low pressure kind of just all across here, and he kind of had this idea that maybe it would pull up, it would maybe a piece of that broad area of low pressure would pinch off basically and come up through the Caribbean. And the waters are extremely warm here. So basically what Jeff Masters was saying last night or yesterday in this blog, was this yesterday? I think it says the 25th on here. 25th is how fast that storm, from his perspective yesterday, how fast this storm was going to develop, this disturbance, depended on whether the circulation stayed over the land mostly or moved over the water, and whether the circulation tightened up or whatever. And it looks like overnight the storm developed really very fast, and it's looking pretty, it has some pretty impressive storms on the basically the eastern and northeastern side of the storm. And if we go a little closer, so it looks like it's actually starting to develop a nice structure, a nice circulation. It looks like the center of the circulation might be somewhere right around here. And it looks like the circulation is mostly over water. And this land is relatively flat. So the land over here is not going to impede the circulation. The waters in between Yucatan and Cuba here, the Straits of the Yucatan, are about 88 degrees. And basically we have basically very, very warm water throughout the Caribbean. So basically the GFS model here is going to tend to take it straight up, straight into the panhandle of Florida. And let's look at the European model. The European model has it doing some wonky stuff. Eventually starting to move north. So it looks like the European model has it kind of just wobbling around here a little bit, doesn't think it's going to really move much. And then it's going to eventually move to the north. Interesting. So at the surface level here, you see right now it's still kind of broad according to the model. A broad area of low pressure. It looks to me like the, looking at the satellite imagery, the low pressure, from what I remember, what I just saw, looks like it has a little tighter circulation than this. Now, right now, it looks like you don't have much in the way of steering currents. You have some strong westerlies here just north of the storm. But not really, no, I wouldn't say even strong. No, these are easterlies. Okay, so these are going to tend to push the storm more east because you have this high pressure system here. Not really any strong steering currents right around. So I can see where the European model is coming from. If we go out to, let's go 24 hours, and the GFS model sees it organizing, still not moving much. Go out 48 hours, still not moving much. Go out 72 hours, and it starts to pull north. And what happens if we go between, according to the GFS model, if we go back to 48, you start to see this ridge of high pressure kind of build to the east. At the same time, you see a little bit of a trough of low pressure over here. And from what I'm understanding, in the upper levels of the atmosphere, we're at upper levels now, 200 hectopascal wind, 500 hectopascal pressure, and you're seeing essentially a trough of low pressure building to the north. So that combined with the ridge of high pressure to the east, they're thinking is going to tend to move it mostly due north. Now, what you have, according to the GFS model, is some strong wind shear coming out of the west. And that's the big question that they've been asking, is how much is the wind shear going to affect the storm? You have very warm water, but you look like you have some relatively high wind shear. If we go out to 72 hours, you could see the wind shear is kind of hitting the side of the storm. Okay, now a lot of people are saying that if the storm gets stronger, it's going to tend to be able to deal with the wind shear better, I guess. And it's going to tend to move more towards the west, I believe, but don't quote me on that. And it looks like the European model has some pretty Strong wind shear as well, persisting. We go to 48 hours. And the European model tends to have the upper level high pressure system. We are an upper level, right? I mean, the upper level low tends to be much more pronounced. But for some reason, they don't have the storm moving as much. Maybe because of these sort of southerly winds happening over here. So the European model tends to think it's going to stay down here for longer, and it may intensify more. Probably wouldn't be able to organize as much if it's not moving, sitting over land. So European model doesn't seem to agree. But let's not forget, people, what happened last year. Ian was a storm that they thought was going to hit more towards the north, around Tampa or north, and it ended up hitting the southwest coast of Florida. So everybody in Florida should be actually concerned about this storm, even in southeast Florida. Let's not forget Wilma that went and hit the west coast of Florida, I believe, around Naples, and it basically strengthened as it went across Florida and hit the east coast pretty hard from the west. So let's not forget about all that. Where are we at? 11 minutes. Not much to add. Franklin, they say, just is going to move north. Out in the Atlantic, there's not much else out there at the moment. If we go to the wide Atlantic image, look at the infrared image, not a lot going on out there. Basically, west of Cape Verde, virtually nothing. These are a bit too south to be a threat. Franklin seems to be going north. This one I wouldn't worry about either. That's going to get pulled north. There's a big gyre of low pressure. I think that's a former storm out here. So really not much going out. The Atlantic's looking pretty quiet. The main thing we're going to have to worry about here in Florida is this storm. And one thing that we have to remember, even in South Florida, is even if the storm hits the panhandle, there's a lot of moisture. Right now we have this area of dry air sitting over us, and it's actually making for a pretty nice, if not hot day. I took a nice walk this morning. But if this develops, nice circulation and starts tracking north, it's going to tend to wrap a lot of moisture around it, and we could see significant rain in southeast Florida. So I think the most likely situation would be southeast Florida getting a lot of rain, and we're going to have to watch it. Otherwise, it seems a little bit too early to see what the storm's doing. Looks like the European model and the GFS model don't agree at all. And there's some interesting dynamics going on in the atmosphere right now. There's a lot of uncertainty with this storm, I would say. But the best forecast I see has it tracking into the panhandle. But everybody in Florida should be, with the uncertainty of what I'm seeing, everybody on the west coast of Florida should be aware. And let's not forget also that depending on what wind shear does, if that wind shear decides for some reason to die down, Wilma in 48 hours went from basically a weak tropical storm to almost a Category 5 storm in 24 hours. And it did it right here in this area. I think it started right around here, and within 48 hours, it was this super intense. I think one of the most intense storms ever in the Atlantic Basin. Okay, so let's not forget that. That's it for the tropical update, or tropical boiler mechanic tropics today. I am out.